Hi, my name is Fred, and welcome back to Embroidery Stuff. One of the issues I've had is using metallic thread. They always bunch up on top, and I think the reason is because there's actually metallized and fused onto the polyester thread, and it causes issues. What happens is that the threads tend to bunch up on top. The feed of the thread, you'll see here in this tube I put here, the polyester thread goes everywhere, it moves across, and what it'll do is it'll hook onto other thread nearby. So I put the metallic thread in a corner, and I use this tube which measures about 3-inch diameter. That's on the outside. Actually, it's about 2 3/4 outer diameter, and the inner diameter is just over 2.5 inches. So you can buy this tube online. I happen to have a few that I use. How did I get it? Well, I bought this stuff a long time ago, and I finally found a purpose for it. Anyhow, point is, if you see here the thread going through this clear plastic tube, the thread keeps hitting the sides of the tube. Well, if I didn't have the tube restricting it, it would pick up and touch other polyester thread and pull it along with it. That causes a massive jam of the thread through the feeding, through the first tensioner. And we don't want that, of course, because when it happens, you got to cut all the thread, restring the whole machine. So if you have a job that requires a lot of metallic thread, it's just going to be a major problem. So I use this tube on the feed, preventing the bunching up of thread because the metallic thread is not gripping onto and latching onto other polyester threads. Okay, now, however, you will sometimes get a little bit of a kink in the thread. It's going to happen. If you get that, you're going to pull it through all the way, get past the kink, cut it past there, and rethread it after that kink point. You'll feel it in your fingers. Gonna waste some thread, that's normal. Now, the real problem is with the needles. What I do is that I use these organ needles made for metallic thread. It's a thicker thread, it's a completely different thread, and the larger eye prevents a lot of the lockups and jams of the thread. Now, the other issue is you're going to get thread breaks. Now, what do you do about thread breaks? Well, the problem is that you got to deal with it with metallic thread. The other issue I have is how often do you need to change that needle? Well, here's my rule of thumb. If the thread basically delaminates, okay, happens once, rethread it, get past any kinks in the thread, put the needle, fine. It works again, great. If you have 3 breaks like this in a row, that means the eye is worn out, time to change the needle. I've had some jobs, I can't tell you how many stitches I go through before I end up changing needles, but I can tell you it's way more than with other needles. Metallic thread just doesn't. So what I also do is I also run my machine with the door open. Now this may or may not apply to your machine. Every machine is different. I do this because the metallic thread moves everywhere, and I don't want it latching onto a nearby thread. So opening the door prevents that from happening. Normally you keep that door closed. These are some of the issues I have found with embroidering with metallic thread. You may or may not want to use these, but I would say definitely keep that metallic thread separate and away from every other thread in the feed, if at all possible. I've tried everything, and this to me was the best solution. Thank you.